Dear Hoev, and welcome to this We Are Eurovision reaction and review today, Ireland. So, Ireland internally selected Brandon Murray this year, supposedly a ex-boy band member, and you know what? This didn't work last year, but I am willing to see if a youthful boy band member, who not many people in Ireland, let alone Europe, have heard of. Let's get on with it. Whoa, his voice is kind of high. It's kind of interesting to me anyway. I'm not saying like it's interesting that his voice is high, but it's interesting that you start the voice or the vocal of the verse so high. It's kind of I wasn't exactly expecting something like this as from a from an artist that I had heard like one or two live performances. That being said, it's not as if this is a bad song, it's just... I don't think I was expecting Ireland to go back to this boy band sound the year after Nicky Byrne didn't qualify. Okay. Ooh. That was a key change and a half. Jesus! Was not expecting that. So I was not expecting that second half to happen. I was kind of expecting a bit more of a slower build, but you know what? It's a risk. Ireland, you're taking a risk. And you know what? I applaud you guys for taking a risk as daring as that, because you know what? Usually when I think Ireland in Eurovision, I kind of think, especially recently, post-Jedward Eurovision, Ireland has been really, really safe. A risky build like that is not as safe as, say, the Plodding Along ballad from Molly Sterling, which I absolutely adored, but to be honest, it was a safe ballad. So, I'm going to try to deconstruct what I think of this song, and then we will go into the review segment. What do I think of this song? I think that, you know what, Ireland is doing something kind of cool. So, what do I think about it? I think that Dying to Try builds up in a rather good method for what I was thinking that it would do. I think that it's rather appropriate and rewarding. Now, I don't know where I got rewarding from, but I do think that in this particular case, the Irish song deserves that. They took a risk at about 2 minutes into the song, and you know what, I feel like this is the moment where like all the backing singers appear out of nowhere, even though there's, you know, probably a spot for them to be on stage now, because that's how stage works into the 2015-16 era of Eurovision anyway. And I feel like they're gonna join him on stage, and you know what, that's okay, because sure, sometimes that might be a bit cliche, but it's the kind of song that I'd almost expect that exact thing to happen on. But, yeah. And, you know what? I feel like in this specific track, there is room for improvement, especially when it comes to the vocals. When I say improvement, the vocals on the studio version are rather solid, but I do think that this song could get a little bit more. And why do I think that? Because at times it feels like the vocals were a bit muted in terms that there wasn't really that much risk in the vocal moves, but I suppose that, you know what, fair enough. That's exactly the kind of thing that I think that some performers who know what they're doing do. They don't do all of the risky moves on the studio version. You leave it for the live performances. That way people who have already heard the song are like, oh, whoa, extra step. I feel like that is the thing that I am most hyped about. This track leaves room for Brandon to deliver A+ vocals when it comes to Eurovision itself. The disadvantages. The vocal high register can be a bit hard to hit straight away, and why I say that is because he's got to stay there for 3 minutes. Now, I'm not saying that he has to go from a deep register up into a high register. I'm just saying that Unless Brandon has done a lot of training when it comes to vocal techniques, which I don't quite know if he has or he hasn't. He quite possibly has. But doing that as a one-take, 3-minute thing can be very stressful for a voice if it is not used to doing that thing. Now, why do I say that? Because usually when you do studio tracks, you do end up doing multiple takes. You're allowed to like switch and pick between like, oh yes, I like this part of take 3, this part of take 5, that part of take 11. You know, you're allowed to do that kind of thing. Or some artists prefer to try to get the one perfect take. I don't know the recording practices behind this entry, so I can't exactly confirm nor deny whether or not he can hold the higher voice that he has for 3 minutes. And this song, look, it's good. It may get lost in the first half of semi-final 2, especially if the recap point is not one of the strong emotional points of the song. If you put in like that first 30 seconds in the recap, you might be struggling for votes, to be very honest. But if you do manage to find the right place to recap this at, if Brandon can hit those notes for the 3 minutes and not sound like he's suffering at all, then this might be Ireland's best chance since Jedward Part 1. If you have an opinion on this song, please feel free to tweet it to @Eurovision or leave it below in the comments. So, in terms of numerical 0 to 10s, what do I think of the Irish song? On my first listen, I thought this was an 8 out of 10. Second listen, a 9 out of 10, and then a third listen gave it a 7 out of 10. So, for Ireland, it means that's an overall 8 out of 10. Good luck, and do pobacenia.